So Washington told Canada that it would be dictating the terms of CUSMA talks. And this week, Canada's answer came back from Mexico City.
Yep. Prime Minister Carney called Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum not to discuss it, to seal it. Canada and Mexico are now coordinating their positions on the agreement that governs the entire continental trade relationship, and they are doing it without Washington in the room.
The United States has a negotiation start date with Mexico, May 25th. It has no start date with Canada, 0. Trump was demanding upfront concessions before talks even begin.
Well, Canada's answer to that demand is now standing next to Mexico, and July 1st is 66 days away.
Now, here's what July 1st actually means. Under the agreement, the three countries have three options. They can renew CUSMA or the USMCA for 16 more years. They can move to annual reviews, which runs for a decade before the agreement expires automatically if not extended, or any party can trigger the withdrawal clause, which requires 6 months' notice.
16 years of certainty versus a decade of annual uncertainty versus an exit. That is what is on the table, and Washington's opening position before any formal negotiation has started is to demand that Canada make concessions first.
Canada's chief trade negotiator, Janice Charette, used one specific word this week to describe what is actually coming down the pipe. Turbulence.
Now, that wasn't diplomatic speak. That was someone telling you the road ahead is not smooth and they're doing it on record. But here's what is different this week from 6 months ago. Canada is not walking into that turbulence alone or from a weakened position.
Mexico's Secretary of Economy, Marcelo Ebrard, is coming to Canada in early May. Montreal and Toronto to be specific. This is not a ceremonial visit. This follows the large Canadian trade mission to Mexico earlier on this year. Both countries are systematically deepening economic ties outside of whatever the USA is demanding.
The two countries agreed to expand collaboration in critical minerals, clean technologies, energy, and advanced manufacturing. Now, those are not just side conversations, Dave. Those are the foundational industries that both countries need Washington to respect, and that both countries are quietly building bilateral resilience in case Washington doesn't, which we know Trump isn't capable of any respect.
Now let's talk about the specific offer that's driving all of this, because it explains exactly why Canada needed to make that call to Mexico and just how absurd Trump's thoughts are.
So, Washington offered tariff relief for Canadian steel and aluminum companies this week. The condition: physically relocate your production operations to the United States.
Come on, really? These are not small facilities, man. These are billion-dollar smelters and foundries embedded in Canadian energy grids and supply chains that have been built over decades. The offer is not operationally realistic, and it was really never designed to be.
No, what it was designed to do is create enough uncertainty in Canadian boardrooms that investment decisions freeze. A tariff costs you money today, an investment freeze compounds for a decade. This is a more sophisticated form of economic pressure than a straight tariff, and Canada declined it for exactly that reason.
And Mark Carney was clear on Canada's response to that one. No hesitation and no mixing words.
Carney's exact words when a reporter asked him if the alcohol ban was going to become more than an irritant to the United States. What did he say? He said, "You know what's an irritant? A 50% tariff on steel and aluminum, 25% on automobiles, all of the tariffs on forest products. Those are more than irritants. Those are violations of our trade deal."
And think about that. He used legal language there. And when the Prime Minister of Canada uses legal language in a public statement or response about a trade agreement, well, that's really deliberate, and it sets up what comes next.
What comes next is that liquor ban. And to understand why this specific instrument has generated more noise in Washington than almost anything else Canada has done in this dispute, you need to understand the numbers.
The LCBO, Ontario's Government Liquor Control Board, is the world's largest single purchaser of alcohol from the United States. Before March 2025, it was buying $965 million in American spirits every year. Bourbon, wine, craft beer from 35 U.S. states. Now, that's gone.
3,600 products pulled from shelves across Ontario, British Columbia, Quebec, and Manitoba. That is 2/3 of Canada's population. U.S. spirit sales in Canada dropped 68% in a single year.
And here is the structural reality that the U.S. has not fully absorbed. When a restaurant replaces bourbon with, say, Scotch or Japanese whiskey, it doesn't automatically switch back when the ban lifts. The shelf space that American spirits held in 2024 are now occupied by producers who are not leaving, who showed support for Canada. The market share loss is not a temporary dip here. It's compounding over years and years.
And I know I'm not going back.
No way.
Which is why Carney linked the ban directly to the tariffs in public with a specific condition. The ban ends when the tariffs on steel, autos, and forest products move, not before. That is the official position.
And then he added the key logic here. These issues are not in separate drawers. They're not separate things. The tariffs and the ban are in the same pile. You do not damage Canadian industries and then ask the provinces to restock American spirits as a goodwill gesture. That is not a negotiation.
Now, we're going to get into what happened inside the U.S. Senate this week, too, because Washington's own institutions started reacting to this pressure in a way that tells you a great deal about where things are landing. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button because this story, it's moving every single day.
Now, let's talk about what the Trump administration is saying. U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer testified to Congress this week. He stated that there are exactly 2 countries that have economically retaliated against the United States in the past year: China and Canada.
China matched U.S. tariffs across hundreds of billions in goods spanning technology, agriculture, and manufacturing. Canada instructed provincial liquor stores to stop ordering Jack Daniels. Greer put those in the same sentence, the same category, in the same hearing.
It's ridiculous. That comparison does not even hold up to scrutiny. But the fact that Washington made it is actually a signal. You don't compare a shelf-stocking decision in Ontario to full-scale Chinese trade war retaliation unless that shelf-stocking decision is genuinely costing you a ton of money.
And then in that same hearing, New Hampshire Senator Jean Chastain directed this at Howard Lutnick, the U.S. Commerce Secretary. Her exact words? They won't do it because of the insults from this president and comments like yours.
Now, we covered that whole hearing and exactly what it means earlier this week. So give it a watch if you haven't already, because the link is in the description below.
So let's think about that for a second. An American senator in a U.S. Senate chamber telling the U.S. Commerce Secretary that American rhetoric is the reason Canadian cooperation has evaporated.
Yeah. The frustration is off the charts, and it's moved inside Washington's own institutions. The premiers holding the liquor ban cannot politically lift it while auto plants are closing and forestry mills are laying off workers. That calculation does not change until those tariffs move or are removed. The pressure is not on the provinces. The pressure is on the United States.
And then the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, says something this week that put all of this into a larger frame. He stated that the United States, China, and Russia are all pushing against European interests simultaneously, and that Europe needs to wake up to that as a structural reality, not just a reaction to a single news cycle.
Now, the pattern that Macron is describing is the same one that Canada's been navigating since this trade war started. A major power applies economic pressure. It insists that each issue be handled in isolation. It labels any retaliation as extreme, and it expects compliance when the pressure continues.
Listen, Canada ran that gauntlet before Europe did, and the Canada-Mexico coalition that formed this week is the direct result of 2 countries that looked at that pattern and decided the answer is not to negotiate in isolation. It's to coordinate.
Every foreign minister watching this dispute is tracking the exact same question. Can a country hold its position against sustained economic pressure from Washington without collapsing? Canada is still standing. That answer matters well beyond this continent.
So let's bring the week together because there are a lot of moving pieces and they all connect. Except for last night's White House Correspondents' Dinner, which is a whole other story that we'll get into later this week.
So Washington demanded upfront concessions from Canada before formal CUSMA/USMCA talks even begin. Canada has no negotiation start date. Mexico has May 25th. Canada's response was to call Mexico and seal a coordination agreement.
Washington offered Canadian steel and aluminum companies tariff relief in exchange for physically relocating to the United States.
The LCBO liquor ban has cost American spirits 68% of their Canadian market. Carney has attached a specific condition to lifting the ban. The tariffs on steel, autos, and forest products need to be removed first. And July 1st is 66 days away. 16 years of certainty, or annual reviews that expire in a decade, or complete withdrawal. Tensions are heating up, and Canada is in the driver's seat.
So here's what we want to hear from you. Answers to 2 questions. First, does Washington accept the linkage, the tariffs, and CUSMA as one file, or does it just push past July 1st and force Canada and Mexico into an annual review territory?
And second, now that Canada and Mexico are coordinating, what is the single most important thing that they should jointly refuse to concede on? Drop your answer in the comments because we love hearing from you.
And if this gave you something to think about, share it, like it, and if you're not subscribed, now's the time. What are you waiting for?
Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Ciao for now.